I cannot wait to see what Luka Doncic will be able to do in the playoffs this year. We gotta talk about that, plus a few other games, and then we gotta talk about some changes that the NBA is thinking about implementing. We gotta talk about all of that, and then finish the video off talking about the player of the week. That's a look at what we gotta talk about today, but with that out of the way, what is up, guys? It's me, Zachary. How y'all doing today? I hope you're having a fantastic day, no matter what part of the world you might be watching from. You guys coming in already know the drill, so go ahead and make sure that you destroy that like button, as well as make sure that you are subscribed to the channel with post notifications turned on. I really appreciate all of it. Now with that out the way though, that's enough talking. Let's just get into what we gotta talk about today. Let's get it, let's go!
Minutes in, Dallas 10-2 lead. Houston turned the ball over on their first three offensive series.
That's not being ready. Ooh.
Step back foul.
Nani?
Okay, so you guys know that not too long ago, I made a video talking about Luka Doncic. I made a video talking about Luka Doncic and how he could become the youngest player in NBA history to win MVP this season. If you were to flirt with or put up a triple-double, a 30-point triple-double, if you were to average that for this season, if you were to average 30, 10, and 10 on the year, and the Dallas Mavericks make it to the playoffs, which it looks like they are going to be able to do, then the storyline for Luka to become the youngest MVP in NBA history is there. I just made a video talking about that a few days ago last week. And after that, I decided that I really didn't want to talk about Luka Doncic anymore because I wanted to let the story ride. I just made a story covering Luka Doncic, so why would I continue to talk about Luka Doncic? So I didn't want to talk about Luka Doncic, even though he had been putting up great numbers and continuing to lead the Dallas Mavericks to wins. But now I have no choice but to freaking talk about Luka Doncic some more. The dude just lit up the Houston Rockets yesterday. Yesterday afternoon, dropped 41 points on the Houston Rockets, and of course the Dallas Mavericks get the win, 137 to 123. This was their fifth win in a row. Luka Doncic in this game, 41 points, 10 assists, and 6 rebounds. And in the month of November, Luka Doncic has averaged 32.5 points, 10.8 assists, 10.6 rebounds, shooting the ball 50% from the field, 36% from three in 12 games, and the Rockets have won 8 of those 12 games, now 11-5 on the year on a 5-game winning streak, 4th in the Western Conference. Now, the Dallas Mavericks coming into the season were a team that a lot of people had to look at and say, you know what, they might have what it takes to fight for the 8th seed in the Western Conference. Not a lot of people thought the Dallas Mavericks were actually going to make the 8th seed in the Western Conference, but we all thought they could give a team like the Sacramento Kings a run for their money now that they were going to have Luka Doncic and Kristaps Porzingis. But so far this season, the Dallas Mavericks are for sure so far the shoo-in for the playoffs, especially with all of the injuries that have been had in the downfall of Golden State this year. They're going to make the playoffs. Now it's just a matter of how high of seeding is this team going to get. Right now, they're the 4th seed, but it is still very early on into the season. They've only played 15 games, and we all know that Luka Doncic last year did start to slow down as the season went on. He was out of shape. He wasn't used to playing an 82-game NBA season. This summer, however, we all saw the transformation that Luka started to do to his body and his diet so that he would be able to sustain and play in a rigorous 82-game season. So we're going to have to see how that plays out, but right now is looking like the Dallas Mavericks are going to make the playoffs. That's 100% sure, and they're going to make it. It could be higher than the 8th or even 7th seed. This team could wind up being the 5th or 6th seed out west. And if that's the case, once again, that means that Luka Doncic was flirting with the 30-point triple-double all year, or averaged a 30-point triple-double during his second year in the league at only 20 years old. And if that's the case, the media will have no choice but to hand this man the MVP. Why? Because it's the best possible story. A guy to start to hand the reins to now that LeBron James, even though he's playing terrifically this year, phenomenally this year, is starting to get up in age. And even though guys like Giannis Antetokounmpo and all these other great young players are in the NBA, there is still no clear-cut guy that's next up. It could be Zion Williamson. We get to see him play in the NBA, but right now it's looking like that guy very well could be Luka Doncic. He could be the next guy after LeBron. What I really want to talk about today, though, is the NBA announcing some changes that they're going to be looking into for the 2021-2022 NBA season. We're going to be talking about that, but first I do very briefly have to go into the other games that went down last night. And the first one we got to talk about is the Los Angeles Clippers pummeling the New Orleans Pelicans 134-109. I'm not like trying to rush Zion back or anything, but it would be really nice to see him play. Montrezl Harrell, though, tying a career high with 34 points and 12 rebounds. The Denver Nuggets beat the Phoenix Suns 116-104. The Suns still missing 3 very key players. Of course, DeAndre Ayton, but not only him, Ricky Rubio and Aaron Baines are still both out for Phoenix. Jamal Murray, 22 points on the night. The Brooklyn Nets once again win the Battle of New York 103-101 versus the Knicks. No RJ Barrett for New York in this one as he was out sick. Spencer Dinwiddie, great though for the Nets with 30 points. And lastly, for the other games, the Sacramento Kings beat the Washington Wizards. The Kings continuing to win after their horrendous start. Harrison Barnes, 26 points on 7 of 8 field goals. Guys, there could be 3 very massive and utterly exciting changes coming to the NBA in just a couple of years. Okay, so over the weekend, Adam Silver in the NBA, they announced some things that they kind of want to try out for the 2021-2022 NBA season. As not only did they announce that the NBPA and the NBA are working on trying to shorten the NBA season. Now, it's not going to go to like 60 games or anything like that, but they are talking about shorting it by 4 games. So instead of 82 games, teams would only play 78 games. And while that might not sound like a big difference, it would cut down on the amount of back-to-back and 3 games and 4 nights that teams do have to play, and I'm sure that's a win-win for everybody. But not only that, the bigger things that the NBA announced were some, like I said, very exciting changes, and we're going to cover all 3 of them. There were 3 of them, and we're going to cover all 3. The first one was a reseeding of the NBA playoffs. All right, so this is how it will work. When there are 4 remaining teams in the playoffs, so after the first 2 rounds, the teams will be reseeded regardless of conference, and here's how that will work. It will be a 1 through 4 seed based upon the regular season records. So the team with the best record awarded the number 1 seed, and the team with the worst record of the 4 rewarded with the number 4 seed. And then the conference finals will play on as regular, 1v4 and 2v3. So an example of this would be back in 2018. During the Western Conference Finals, you had the Houston Rockets and the Golden State Warriors playing each other, which were at the time the first and third best team record-wise in the NBA, and then you had the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Boston Celtics playing against each other, which was the second and fourth best teams in the NBA record-wise. And we all know how those series went down. The Warriors won in 7 and the Cavaliers also won in 7. However, with this new format, it would have been the Houston Rockets taking on the Cleveland Cavaliers, as they were the first best team with the first best record against the Cleveland Cavaliers, who had the fourth best record of those teams. And the Boston Celtics would face the Golden State Warriors as the 2v3 matchup. And the reason the NBA is trying to implement this is because they don't want the best 2 teams meeting in the conference finals anymore. They don't want any repeats of 2018, where we had that marvelous series between the Houston Rockets and the Golden State Warriors. But it was the conference finals, and then the NBA finals was the Golden State Warriors versus the Cleveland Cavaliers 1v4, and that was a 4-game sweep. We only got 1 good game in that series, game 1, and it was over after J.R. Smith thought that the Cleveland Cavaliers had the lead. So the NBA is really trying to avoid stuff like that happening, and for that reason, honestly, I can't see why this wouldn't be a thing. I can't believe we've gone this long without this being a thing. I can't think of a single negative con against this whole thing. This whole playoff reseeding of the conference finals seems freaking genius, but that's not the only change that the NBA is talking about making. They're also talking about hosting a winter tournament between all 30 teams. Now, this one gets me really excited as well. So basically what it is, it's what it sounds. It'll be a tournament held between Thanksgiving and Christmas Day, where all 30 teams are required to play. Now, that's all of the details. They didn't go into many details about how the tournament would exactly be held and the exact dates, but I'd imagine that it would start the day after Thanksgiving. You can't start on Thanksgiving because of football on Thanksgiving, but you start the day after, and then you're in the money. When I was thinking about this though, I did come up with a list of pros and cons. As some of the things that I was worried about this was just how are they going to ensure that players and teams are actually going to be trying during these games, especially teams that are trying to win the NBA championship. They might look at this winter tournament and say, it's not really worth our time. We're not going to try our hardest to win it because our goal is to win an NBA championship. And speaking of that, what about resting players? What about load management? Are players going to be able to load manage during this tournament? Would that be okay? Because if it is, then it kind of seems like a slap in the face to the entire tournament, because if this was an actual tournament, if this was the playoffs, you wouldn't see a guy like Kawhi Leonard saying, you know what, I'm going to take tonight off to load manage. That's not going to happen. But in this winter tournament, when players might not see it as the ultimate goal, especially for teams who are trying to win a championship, they might still load manage. And once again, that's just them saying, you know what, we don't really care about this. On the other hand, though, I think this brings a lot of positive. First off, it brings a whole new layer of excitement to the NBA season. Right now, during the months of November till around Christmas time, we sort of hit this lull in the NBA. Everyone's waiting for mid-December and Christmas time to come around for a couple of reasons. First of all, we got the Christmas Day games, and of course, that's when we can start to expect trade rumors to really start heating up in the NBA too. And then after that, we get into the All-Star weekend. We get to see how all the teams adjust after these trades, and that leads us right into the NBA playoffs. Right now, though, there is a bit of a lull, and this winter season tournament would definitely help with that. Not only that though, it gives some teams who, let's be honest, won't be able to win an NBA championship this year something to play for. I mean, who's to say teams aren't going to try and get hot during this month because they want to be the team playing on Christmas Day in that NBA championship? It'll be all eyes on those teams, and the players who typically don't get a chance, the players and teams who typically don't get a chance to play during Christmas Day, where the whole nation and the whole world will be watching, will now have a chance to be able to play in those games. And the last change that the NBA tried to reintroduce, this is something that they brought up in the past, would be a playoff play-in. Like I said, the NBA brought this up not too long ago. However, it was met with a very uneasy response, mainly because it gives teams who have no reason to be in the playoffs, no sense to be in the playoffs, a shot to make it into the playoffs. But that was before, but now they revised it a little bit. Here's how it will work. The 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th seeds do battle at the end of the regular season for the final 2 playoff spots, the 7th and the 8th seed. The 7th seed will play the 8th seed in the first game, and the winner gets 7th place. And then the 9th seed will play the 10th seed, and the loser of that game gets eliminated. Their season is done. And then you take the winner of 9v10, and they play the loser of 7v8 for the 8th seed. Now, I believe before it was like 7v10 and 8v9, and then just the winners get in, and that sounded pretty bad because now you're giving the 10th seed a lucky shot to get into the playoffs over the 7th seed, and the 9th seed a lucky shot to get into the playoffs over the 8th seed. This way, the 7th and 8th seed do have the advantage because you only have to beat one of these teams once, right? So if you can't beat the 10th seed as an 8th seed, then I don't know what to tell you. So I do like this version of the playoff play-in, but then there's still the whole question of what does this actually accomplish? I mean, let's be real here. The 7th and 8th seed in the NBA playoffs generally don't matter. And then if you're giving that team, or possibly the 10th seed, a team that was the 10th seed makes it in, it seems like it matters even less. Well, here's the thing, while this isn't the biggest overall change, what Adam Silver and the NBA are trying to do with this change is kind of fight against tanking, because something that you see teams do during the season is start to shut down once they realize, hey, you know what, we're probably not going to make the playoffs. There's still a whole month and a half, 2 months of basketball to go, but let's be real here. We're 8 games behind the AC. Things aren't looking up for us, so let's shut it down. Let's just get these young guys out there and pull back our veterans and our best players just to make sure that they don't get injured, because we're not going to make the playoffs. With this, that goes out the window. That way of thinking shouldn't be happening anymore, especially for the playoffs, because they still want to make the playoffs. If you get to the playoffs, that's some extra money, that's a couple of extra checks, that's some extra exposure. Everyone wants to make the playoffs, so the players will be playing their hardest. And not only that, once again, it's just another level excitement added to the NBA season. It might not be the best teams playing, but I can guarantee you that those games would be some good games. Those are the 3 changes that the NBA is thinking of implementing. And like I said, I'm excited for all of them. Like, I wish these changes were happening right now. If there was an NBA freaking winter tournament about to go down, I'd be hype. It'll give me as a Pistons fan hope for something. I ain't got hope to win an NBA championship this year, but I can at least have hope in the fact that maybe my team gets hot for the pack next month and we get to hold that NBA winter championship trophy or whatever prize they decided to give away for that. I think that would be really cool. I think the idea of a 1 through 4 in the playoffs, the reseeding of the playoffs, really cool. The play-in tournament, maybe not as cool as the other ones, but still something cool. So the NBA is making all of these great changes, or they're about to make all of these great changes. And now, with that being said, I just had to make one quick plea to anyone in the NBA that might be watching this that can do something about this, because I love it. I love the NBA, and I love how forward-thinking they are about all of this things. It's something that sets them apart from the MLB, the NHL, and even the NFL. I mean, the NBA is so forward-thinking. They're looking to expand into all of these other marketplaces, different countries, all this other stuff. It's all great. But for the love of God, for the love of freaking God, please, can we stop with the awards show being held at the end of June? That's the one change that you have to make. The awards show for the regular season should not end after the freaking finals. It's a regular season awards show. It should happen after the regular season. So here's what I think could be a good idea. You hold the play-in tournament, that happens, all right? The season's at this point has been over a week. The playoff tournament just ends, and then after a couple days after that, you go into the regular season awards before the start of the playoffs. It'll give teams a couple of weeks off before the start of the playoffs this way to get rested, get guys healthy, and strategize their opponents, because that's a great thing for the NBA, right? Players being healthy during the playoffs, give them a couple of weeks to rest their bodies and regroup and practice after a grueling 82-game season. And then before the playoffs, we already know who the regular season MVP was. And that's even going to add an extra layer, I think, of excitement, because if you look at last year, if the NBA MVP had been announced before the playoffs and we knew that Giannis won it over Harden, just think of the extra motivation that would give a guy like James Harden going into the playoffs. I mean, this guy would be going into the playoffs now with a chip because he thinks that he should have been the MVP. And now you have Giannis, on the other hand, winning the MVP, and maybe that influences play in some other way, because now he's like, you know what? I just got awarded the MVP and I'm going to show him exactly why in the NBA playoffs. I mean, it doesn't make sense to hold the freaking regular season awards show after the NBA Finals. Weeks after the NBA Finals. Now, though, guys, I had some personal matters to take care of on Friday. I'm so sorry that I was unable to make a video. And because of that, I wasn't able to do the player of the week. And that's something that I really want to start. So I'm not just going to say, you know what, we're going to skip it. I'm going to do it right now. It's time for the player of the week, the portion of the video, the time of the week we get into the players who were killing it during the week and award them, or you guys get to award them with the crown of player of the week. And without further ado, here are this week's nominees. First up, you have Luka Doncic, who led the Dallas Mavericks to a perfect record during the week, 3-0, 34.3 points per game, 10 assists per game, and 12 rebounds per game. Next up, though, you got LeBron James, who likewise led his team to a perfect record 3-0, 29 points per game, 11 assists, and 7.3 rebounds per game throughout the week. Paul George returning his first week back, and the dude killed it. Also leading the Clippers to a 3-0 record, averaging 26.7 points per game, 3.7 assists per game, and 5.3 rebounds per game. The last guy actually played 4 games last week and led his team to wins in all 4 of those games. That player was none other than Giannis Antetokounmpo, who had a monster week, putting up 29 points, 6.8 assists, and 13.2 rebounds per game. Those are the nominees for this week. You guys can vote for who you think was the player of the week up in the right-hand corner of the video. And last week, the player of the week was none other than James Harden, who, get this, averaged 42 points, 8 assists, and 6 rebounds per game. A much-deserved first player of the week for this season. That though is going to do it for everything that we gotta talk about today. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Once again, if you did, go ahead and destroy that like button, as well as make sure that you are subscribed to the channel with post notifications turned on so you don't miss out on more videos like this every Monday through Friday. That is 5 days per week. You guys are to know that you are the real MVPs, but with all of that being said, until tomorrow, keep getting the buckets, Team SDC, and I'm out of here. Peace!